Hey there, friends, villagers, trolls. Dave Paulides, Canammissing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here very much. And we're down in the silo, trying to stay warm, but it is freezing outside. So we're indoors today. A couple of things. Going to start off right away talking about social media and China. I got to be very, very careful about what I say here. And I have rehearsed it. And I will not say which social media sites I mean, because I will be axed. Specifically young people. Some of the biggest social media sites that young people use today are owned and operated by the CCP. How do I know this? When I was in Silicon Valley, I had a lot of connections in software, IT, etc. And I still have a lot of those friends. They advised me several years ago of a couple of sites, and they said, Dave, stay away. Don't get on them. Don't participate. Don't load photos. Don't do anything. This is a monitoring site for the Chinese Communist Party. And it's masquerading as a social media site for the world. What they do is they get a glimpse into your movements, what you do, what you post, who you are, facial recognition. All of these things come right through that site and more. And I can't believe the people out there that are using these sites that are completely unaware. If you're using a site, go to DuckDuckGo. Don't go to Google. Don't go to Yahoo. Go to DuckDuckGo and say, place in the search box, Chinese social media site. Some have been attempted to be banned by the United States, and others are in the process of being banned. It's all part of a massive effort by China to understand our country, to infiltrate it, and to take us out from within. And unfortunately, a lot of people out there are not attuned to what's happening. Now, some of you have said, well, Dave, this is such a political parade here. No, not politics. You don't know me if you think this is politics. I've voted on all sides of the block. Left, right, east, west, north, south. I voted on all sides because I'm a free thinker and I'm a critical thinker. One thing I don't waver on. If I see an organization or a group is trying to take down America, I'm going to fight with all my heart to keep that flag flying and to keep the Bill of Rights and our amendments intact. Sorry, that's the way it goes. If you don't like it, leave. I have no problem. Leave. I don't care. That's the kind of person that I am. I know that hundreds of thousands of men and women have died for our flag and have died for what it stands for. And I know that there's no other country in the world that has gone to the aid of more countries than the United States. So don't start singing some song to me about that. I'm not in the mood for it. But I am in the mood to talk about some interesting things that have been happening here and around the world, and I'd be glad to bring it to you. But if you're going to post comments on the video, oh, this is too political, you better explain why it's politics and not facts. Okay? So, I've got some really good letters for you today. Dave, national parks, why do they exist? One answer is politicians saw that money derived could be expensive from oil, drilling, gold, too much work, farming, too rocky, so they thought about it. They said, how do we make money from these lands? Someone suggested roping it off and charging admission, same as P.T. Barnum, show business ploy. The national parks were then started. So where does the money go? One politician asked. The answer is quite simple. To the government treasury, where we can control it and do as we wish with the money. Then another asked, how do we control the visitors? The response, what visitors? The quote is, To solve a quandary, start with the simple answer and finish with the complex answer. That way you save energy and time. Just thinking outside the box, or circle, or square, or line and trail. On a more serious note, something supernatural is definitely going on. Nobody walks on a trail and goes into what your last video discussed without a wild explanation. They were extremely lucky. Keep kicking the nest, both you and Steve Isdall, and sooner or later, the hornets will come flying out. Just do not get stung, my brother. Be careful. Oh. So as many of you said in dozens of videos ago, Dave, don't talk about the trolls. Don't read their letters. Okay, so I stopped reading them. And I can tell you that it has only increased. And the idiots that are out there are amazing. The good thing for me is they don't think real clear. It's easy to counter what they say. I mean, I could have a sixth grader with me and they could do it better than me probably. But you can see that there's a few comments on past videos where I have responded and corrected people that have said blatantly untrue things. Anyhow. Dave, hello from the Bitterroot Valley. It's an area in southern Montana, kind of near Glacier, or kind of near Yellowstone. First of all, I want to say thank you for all your hard work and research. We are all learning so much and appreciate all you do, and how much more aware we are in the woods because of you. My heart is heavy for the loss of your son, Ben. Please know he is watching over you, and we all support you. Thank you for speaking out on the topic of mental health and bringing it into the light. I'll preface this by saying I grew up in the Flathead Valley. It's where I am. And I've spent a lot of my life in the woods and mountains. I was so fortunate to have Glacier in my backyard. My husband is from Alaska and is a professional hunting guide there, so he is no stranger to surviving in the bush. While it's freshest in my mind, I want to share an experience that happened the first week of October this year in the Snowcrest Mountains while on a hunting trip with my husband and our 2 young sons. So where were they? I actually printed a map for it because I was interested. So, this is Bozeman right here. They were hunting right here in the Snowcrest Range. This is right here, the Wyoming border. Boom. Yellowstone, West Yellowstone is right here. Actually, a man got killed right here photographing an area just outside of West Glacier, killed and attacked by a grizzly bear. Serious stuff here. People take it seriously, and you should too if you come into this region. So they were hunting the Snowcrest Range. And just to give you some perspective, this is Glen, this is Caldwell, this is the Walkerville Butte, this is Three Forks. So you kind of get a feeling for where you're going. Big sky, big ski resort there too. Got it? All right. We're at a Forest Service cabin at 8,100 feet in elevation, a ways out of Dillon, Montana. The afternoon we got there, we loaded our pack goats and headed straight up the mountain to Glass for elk. It was sunny and beautiful out. Stayed up there for a while, didn't see anything but a few mule deer. On our way back, dark clouds rolled in. Wind hit and it started snowing. It was cold and brutal. We made it to the edge of a clearing and could see the cabin through the trees when suddenly our lead pack goat abruptly stopped and refused to go any further. This is not like him, as he will follow my husband anywhere. I noticed the wind had completely stopped, the snow stopped, and it was suddenly extremely silent and still. I instantly told my husband to stop as he was pulling the goat to get him to move. The goats absolutely would not move and fought against my husband until I said stop. I grabbed both my boys, 10 and 8, and held them close. I immediately felt that we needed to stay right there and not continue, though we could see our cabin. We all stopped and waited a few minutes in silence. We didn't feel the cold or anything at all. In fact, the only thing I felt was a ferocious feeling to keep my boys safe. Out of nowhere, the wind and snow started again and the lead goat started walking again. We continued on to the cabin and nothing else happened. We decided to leave the next day. We have personal locator devices and never take a trip without them. After this hunting season, and more observations of our lead pack out in the woods, my husband has said he is learning to read his clues, and we both now pay attention to his actions and behavior, as we both think he is much more attuned to the woods than us. Listen to animals. They sense more than we can. Keep up the good work. We are longtime viewers and would love to see you speak somewhere here in the state. Our families would be there in a heartbeat. Your research is so appreciated, and I share what I've learned with anyone who will listen. God bless and thank you. Well, they even sent us a picture of that lead goat. And there it is. Good looking guy. This is the area they were in. Beautiful. But you can see there's a meadow, tree line. You never know what's behind that tree line. Now, I've said many times that animals have senses that are so well advanced of ours, it's unreal. Yeah, we may have good hearing, reasonable eyesight, but our sense of smell is nothing compared to a dog. And then you think about other senses that we haven't developed, like that sense that we're being watched and the hair goes back on the back of our head and we turn around, there's somebody looking at us. What kind of sense would you describe with that? And maybe that's what the goat had, or maybe he smelled something that the people didn't smell. She did a wise thing. Stop where you're at, wait for it to pass, go back to back, so everyone has a 360-degree look of what's going on. Make sure nothing's coming up behind you. Obviously, they're hunting. They have weapons. That was good. No, I was going to tell you. This area, one reason I read that letter, this area has come up to me in the past. This is even before I had the YouTube going. A guy was elk hunting, made it up to the top of a ridge within 10 miles of where these people were. And as he's on the top of the ridge, he sees a herd of elk below him, and he sees them slowly moving away. And he sees something that we've talked about before, almost as though it's in a stealth mode, but it's like you're looking through saran wrap at something, but you're just looking at the hillside. But that saran wrap image keeps moving. We saw this saran wrap image moving towards this group of bull elk. Well, the elk all of a sudden took off to the top of this mountain, and this thing was moving pretty fast towards it. And this hunter said he's never seen anything like it, but the elk were responding to it. And obviously this thing appeared to be hunting it, which is weird. And that's why I read this. This is the second strange thing that I've read in that same area. Now, that area of southern Montana and northern Idaho is hunted heavily. And areas near national parks usually are, because the animals know to herd up there for safety. So, this was an article that was released just within the last couple days by the Fish and Game Department of the state of Montana, and it dealt with chronic wasting disease. It said the state's Fish and Game Department is extending the deer hunting season in certain areas of the state. This is due to continuing issues with chronic wasting disease throughout the state. The goal of the hunt will be to reduce the density of white deer. This will help slow the spread of chronic wasting disease, a contagious and deadly disease that causes its victims to die. In some regions, signs of CWD have appeared as much as 45% of the local herd. There is no known cure for CWD, which was first detected in Montana's wild herds in 2017. It can also be found in elk, moose, and mule deer and whitetail. Hunters play an important role in reducing the spread of CWD. Hunters not only allow the state to control the population density, but harvested deer can be submitted to the state for testing for free. While hunters are encouraged to submit samples to the state for testing, it is not mandatory. It should be mandatory. Now, I understand the basic logic behind this, that's not going to stop it. And it won't even slow it down. Here's why. Say you have a herd of 20 deer, and let's just say 8 of the deer are CWD positive. And let's say you take out a few of those deer, and you're down to, let's say, 5 out of 20, or 5 out of 18, 17. Those 5 are continuing to defecate, urinate, and drool in areas where that herd will go. That herd goes into that area, they catch the CWD, and they pass it on. The only way to even start to control it would be to kill every deer out there that has CWD, develop a vaccine for the deer that don't, or find deer, elk, moose that have some genetic resistance to it, which they haven't found yet. Without that, it's going to be the greatest loss of animal life in North America. It's happening right now. It's in 27 states. I should say it's been identified in 27 states. It's probably in 40 states or more. And they just haven't tested in those areas to find it. CWD, I keep talking about it here, and I get very few comments from people. But everybody who goes into the wild, who loves wildlife, should be concerned. Everyone. This is a little interesting piece somebody wrote to me. It says, down to the basics, in reverence and memory of those who have gone before us in war and in peace, through old age, disease, accident, or by their own hand. It touches deep because life has meaning and purpose. Otherwise, it would all be a waste of time for science and or the creator. Emphasis is on the or, because a creator would have to use the tool of science to create, just like an artist must use paints to create a work of art. Aha, one might ask. If a creator uses science to create with, then who created the science? At this point, I'm reminded of the old TV show titled Kung Fu, in which Grasshopper's master might reply, "Grasshopper, paint is traditionally made of flower petals. Is it impossible, then, for an artist to walk out in the meadow and pick his own flowers? Or is it fundamentally impossible for the human mind to grasp such an idea?" Bad impersonation. Then the master might add, "Therefore, Grasshopper, wisdom thinks with its mind when it is essential to do so, and thinks with its heart all other times." Why is it so hard, then, to understand? Why must there always be two camps? Must the mind of man always be so small? Remember that when one answer is found, more questions will then appear. Life then may be a continuous epilogue and possibly an exponential experience with no end. I think there are certain people that are forever soul searchers, experiencers, philosophers. This type of individual does not fit in well with the humdrum beat of society, and they notice more than what others notice. This leads to a type of seclusion or separation from mainstream society in certain ways. They can interact well and BS just as well as anyone else, but inside, what they really want is to figure out what life is, its energy, its soul. I really believe this existence is just a temporary stay, just like stepping off of a train into a train station. You're at the train station for a while, maybe you just look around, buy a sandwich, and then wait for the next train. Maybe you leave the station and venture far and do all sorts of things, climb mountains, raise a family, sail a boat. Maybe you do a combination of things, but your life is a stopover point. And deep inside, you know there is more to the story. Eventually, you get on another train and go somewhere else, just to get off at another train station somewhere in space and time. When you see, or at least interact with others you have previously known and loved. Well, none of the time schedules and posters on the train station wall say anything about anything, so you have to wait and see what's coming next. Important. The sense of society, the sense of belonging, the sense of being needed, liked, and loved is what people need in order to survive and thrive in the long run. All of this is being taken away from us in our society right now, and in big chunks. Everything takes and nothing gives. So no wonder there's an epidemic of suicide in our country. Why isn't it being discussed in the mainstream media like you mentioned, Dave? Could it be because the mainstream media is owned by only a handful of individuals? And what other important sectors of society, such as the education sector, are now being centralized and thus controlled by only a handful of people? Stop right there. Let's stop right there. Our educational system cannot be controlled by our government. We, as parents, control what teaches our kids. And if you don't stand up and get involved with your local educational board and go to those meetings and talk to your kids and look in the textbooks that they're getting and go to those meetings and vocalize your concern, talk to your neighbors, organize and go to those meetings, then it's your own fault that we're getting scammed here. You need to be involved. We can't allow our government to mind warp our kids. We are in charge of educating our children. We are. We dictate what the government is allowed to teach them. Unless you want to go to China and allow the indoctrination process of your kids there, because that's what's happening in China. These sectors of society directly and indirectly shape the daily lives and the future lives of the entire population. The problem of suicide must be addressed and a solution found, but even a casual analysis will conclude that the suicide is a symptom of a much larger problem. We are indeed in deep trouble. Thanks for the note. You know, I don't like to say we're in deep trouble. We are in trouble. And it's getting deeper every day. And I've seen a lot of people online start to talk about it like I am. Few talk about suicide. The taking of one's life is horrific. It's got to stop. We need these people alive and helping us in our cause. Dave, I hope you're staying warm and healthy. It's cold out there. Oh, it's really cold out there. I've seen your movies and watch every video you put out. Two things I want to bring to your attention. One, when I was 14 years old, 1974, I was babysitting outside of Vacaville, California. Stop there. Vacaville is this great little town that a lot of people stop at because it's sort of a halfway point between the Bay Area and Sacramento. And there's a lot of fast food places and gas stations right there. It's convenient. I've stopped at it probably 100 times on my way to Tahoe. So anyhow, we're in Vacaville. The parents had 5 acres, most of it almond orchards. I was walking with the kids through the orchard at twilight and heard a slight humming sound. I looked up, and above us, probably about 500 feet, not really sure, but it was close, was a large black triangle craft. It was virtually silent. It scared me half to death and the kids, and I ran to the nearest neighbors. The man of the house walked us back to our house after a little while and it was gone. But when the parents got home, I told them what happened, and they said they had seen it too while they were in town. So black triangle crafts that run silent have been around for a long time. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Next note. Dave, hope you're doing well when this email finds you. I've been meaning to reach out to you since my father informed me of your son's passing, but I wasn't sure how to say what was on my mind. Recently, you read one of my father's emails on your YouTube channel. Thank you for that. He was thrilled to see you took the time to read and share his story. And I decided it was finally time to reach out. First and foremost, I want to express to you how sorry I am for your loss. I know that doesn't change anything and make it any easier for you, but I'm truly heartbroken for you and your family. I remember the first time I came across your work was 2016, and I was going through some really difficult times. I've struggled with mental health issues since being a teen, and I was experiencing one of the worst depressive episodes I've had in a while. I found some stories about a few curious missing persons cases that referenced your name. I sat up all night reading those stories and decided the next day I was going to look you up and see what else I could find. As an avid hiker, I was hooked. I rented both your movies, watched so many of your YouTube videos, and even bonded further with my father as he became immersed in your work as well. Well, that's awesome. Awesome. Give your dad a hug from me for being involved and for loving you. That's what life's about. It wasn't until a few months later that I realized the only thing that pulled me out of that depression was your missing 411 project. A few years later, in 2018, I began to think that I was losing my battle with mental illness. I really didn't want to be here anymore, and I'd lost all interest in the things that used to bring me joy. I was searching for something to get my father for Christmas when I decided to pull up your website. I ordered him your DVD and figured I would get myself a book. Well, Dave, that book saved my life. I once again found myself in this obsession with 411 to the point where my depression started to slowly slip away without even noticing. Your work has been my saving grace, Dave, and I just wanted you to know that. I know that me telling you this doesn't bring back your son or change things for you, but I wanted you to know that your work is what kept me going when I didn't think I had anything to live for. You have saved the lives of people you don't even know in more ways than one. Whether that be by sparking a curiosity in someone going through a tough time or helping a hiker or hunter be more prepared on their journey. I cannot thank you enough, and I hope you continue to the work you do. It holds so much importance to so many people. Please be sure to take care of yourself. Remember, you're not alone. Thank you again, and I look forward to your future work. Wow. That's huge. To say that menial me, nobody, Dave, could have saved someone's life, I couldn't ask for anything more. I mean that. I've had quite a few of these letters in the last year, and it's meant a lot. And the people out there that say, hey, Dave, get off the mental health kick. Letters like that reinforce the need to talk about it. And I can almost guarantee, that each of you out there has someone in your circle of friends and relatives that is suffering a mental health condition right now. It's almost a guarantee. And you may not even know about it because they may be hiding it. A lot of people with mental health don't want to talk about it. They isolate, which is the worst thing. You need to get out, you need to socialize, you need to talk about it. You need to get into a NAMI group, N-A-M-I. But thank you for that letter. It gives me something to move forward with. Sometimes I need that. Hey Dave, I felt compelled to write you. Please forgive me because this letter will be longer than you like for them. I'm a Christian, and today it hit me differently than other videos. Maybe there will be something useful for you, maybe not, but I know that this is a sad anniversary coming up, and it just seemed timely for me to tell you a few things. I'm a faithful follower of you, just like most of the villagers. The first time I saw you shed tears was quite a bit before your loss. You were devastated along with the families that never knew where their loved ones go. It's a very special gift. For the last few years, I've gotten closer to my God and began to have a strong desire to learn His Word. When you seek God, He opens doors. Too many coincidences have happened these last few years that have truly solidified my faith. Stop there. Don't turn away right now. Just listen, okay? Whether you believe in God or not, or whether you're spiritual, hold on. In your case, you lost Ben. The fake pandemic hit the world. You're talking about mental health when almost no one else is. And you've started warning us about where we are headed by our sorry, evil politicians. I'm sure you must have thought about your life trajectory changing due to Ben. Oh yeah. God did not take Ben from you, but he allowed him to be a light that guided and assisted you on this unexpected journey. There aren't many people that would have continued on, but God always sees our gifts and he will grow them. You have a choice that people listen to. You are no nonsense and fearless. You are also a true empath, and you will find a way to continue this work regardless of roadblocks. We need that now. God warns us to always look forward to the heavenly realm when we find light, love, and strength to ward off things from the demonic realm. The reason for this is because we must fear what takes our soul. Not our bodies, of course. Anything that can take our souls is demonic. God calls this the powers of darkness. As far as these strange disappearances goes, along with cryptids and UFOs, they are all from the dark realm. They can't be caught because they are too powerful. They are stealthy, and they let us see or hear just enough to distract us from our God. They put scales on our eyes so they can hide in plain sight. As far as the world stage, they seem to have the upper hand, causing enough chaos to keep us in a constant state of hate, fear, and panic. You, Dave, are doing a great work by shedding light on the darkness. Your work is valuable as you are waking people up. You're also helping to create a village that, above all, are caring people. Nothing stops evil better than good. We need to be good and caring. And you know what? I can tell by the comments on these videos, you guys are good and caring. And wow, to have those people surround each of us, that's huge. It sickens me that people disappear without a trace, unimaginable fear and pain that never stops. No possible explanation for this can make it better. I just know your work is good and is helping so many of us. Terrible things are coming in and out of this world, and we need to be aware. Thank you a million times over for what you do and for being a good, caring man. I try. I try hard sometimes. Dear Mr. Paulides, I've long been fascinated by time slips and disappearances that happen to different people. I experienced a time slip in 2014 while I was working as a teacher in Nagoya, Japan. Here's my story. I'll try to give you as much background information as possible regarding details. Please excuse me if something is missing. I've tried to recall the events as best as I am able. I had a job teaching English to kindergarten children in 2014. I had a bit of a commute to get to work. I had to take the subway several stops, transfer to a different line, and then take a bus a short distance. The last leg of a journey was a short 10-minute walk or so. My usual routine was to take the subway to the Hoshigaka, G-A-O-K-A, station, where I would meet a coworker named Reed, and we would ride the bus together. We would hop off the bus and swing by a 7-Eleven store to grab lunch and snacks for the day. My coworker and I needed to punch into work no later than 9. We'd board the bus at the station at 8:21, 15 minutes later or so on the bus, another 5 minutes to the convenience store, less than 10 minutes or so walking, and we'd be at work. We would arrive between 8:45 and 8:50 almost every day, just like clockwork. One day in the summer of 2014, this was not the case. Reed and I met up at the same station, boarded the 8:21 like usual. We rode the usual route and arrived at our stop. We disembarked and made our way to the convenience store. We picked up our usual items for the day and left for the school we worked at. We walked down the road and crossed over the Ueda River. We would always make small chit-chat on the way, and at no point did we notice anything unusual. A short time later, we arrived at school. We came upstairs like nothing was out of the ordinary, and we greeted our Japanese co-teachers, Mickey and Mai. "Hello," we each said, and I remember Mai looking up at me from the office and saying, "You're late." Reed and I were so confused that she was talking about, and so we were casually coming in and going about our putting our lunches in the staff refrigerator when our boss came around the corner. "Where have you two been? It's almost 10. Kids will be here any minute." Again, Reed and I were really just unsure of what was happening. My first thought was that Mike and the Japanese staff were pranking us. I walked around the corner into the office and looked at the clock. 9:45. I stepped into the adjacent classroom. 9:45. I remember heading upstairs to the 3rd floor to get my work shirt on, just feeling so confused. And honestly, a little bit excited about this whole thing. Reed was up there with me, and I tried to talk with him a little bit and just kept getting a lot of, I don't know, man, that's really weird. He really didn't want to discuss it. I think it kind of freaked him out. Mike was a bit angry with us and didn't really buy or understand our story. We still were able to work that day, and everything went off just fine without any further issues or concerns. We didn't get docked on our paychecks or anything because that was the first and only time either of us had been late. There are a couple more bits to the story which make it interesting. One thing to note about Japan is that it is one of the most punctual countries in the world. The trains, buses leave exactly on time every time with no room for error. You can set your watch by it. In fact, if a train is late for some ungodly reason, you can actually stop by the station master's kiosk as you exit the train. He will give you a little ticket that basically apologizes for you being late due to the train being slow. Wow. Some people think that this could have been some sort of seizure. I am epileptic and take medicine to manage my condition. At that time, I had been seizure-free for years. Besides, there were two of us. Reed was not an epileptic. The odds of us both having some sort of episode with me being seizure-free for years and having no prior medical condition for that time was astronomically low. We left the station 8:21 exactly. It's highly unlikely that this happened on a bus full of people. Don't bet on it. I would usually do a time check while at the convenience store to make sure that we had enough time for the walk. I don't recall exactly what time we left the convenience store that day, but my best estimate would be about 8:40. That leaves the time slip taking place just after leaving the convenience store and before arriving at work. Japan doesn't observe daylight savings. Oddly enough, the issue was pretty much forgotten about shortly after this. Nobody discussed it or talked about it. It just disappeared, much like the lost hour. I don't have any explanations or even opinions about this. It is something which is impossible to quantify. The thing that I have learned from this is that there are a great number of forces at play in the world just beyond the range of our perceptual understanding. Some of these are good, others bad. Some are just plain mischievous when they cause you to be late for work. I would love to learn the answer for what really happened during the lost hour, but I'm also at peace with knowing that as a result of this experience, I've been fortunate enough to have had a veil lifted for the briefest of moments and to have stepped through something that few people even know exists. Thanks for that. There was an ad on TV. I think it was a bank ad, maybe for Visa, but I'm not sure. And it was about a young man, he was probably about 20, that walked into a bar. And he was in the bar just a short period of time, and then everything around him froze. People, drinks, everything froze in its place. Time stopped. And he kept walking around. I don't know if anyone remembers that ad, but I've had several people tell me from MUFON that this idea of things being frozen in time while the time around them continues is real. There was an X-Files episode where Mulder and Scully are driving down the road. Something happened, and and the clocks were off. Mulder pulled to the side of the road, made a mark in the road where he was at. And he wanted to drive the distance again to see how much time they had lost. It's real. The thing is that you won't, if you're the victim of this, you won't know what's happening. It's like you're completely oblivious to that period of time. Now, maybe going through reverse hypnosis may help. I don't know. I've never actually known someone that's gone through it. But in this instance, the person knew that there was some type of time slip. So in that instance, in Japan, if that person went for reverse hypnosis, they might understand what happened to them during that time or where it happened. I don't know. It's interesting food for thought. And during that time slippage, what could happen? I don't know. All right. So I'm going to talk about 3 cases today from 3 different parts of the world. And they're very different. First place, Wendover, Nevada. If you're ever driving from, say, Salt Lake City to Reno, or from Reno to Salt Lake City, right at that Nevada-Utah border is the city of Wendover, Nevada. Not a big place. And it's pretty lonely out there. But that's where this incident started. His name was J.A. Those were the initials, Lyman, L-Y-M-A-N. He's 51 years old. He went missing October 15th, 1936, in an area west of Wendover. He was the 20-year postmaster for the town. And back in 1936, the town must not have been very big. But there's a post office there. It's kind of the gateway to Utah for everyone from California and Nevada going through. It's a very heavily traveled freeway. He was married. And on October 15th, he left with his brother-in-law, who was from another Nevada town called Battle Mountain. And he and his brother were going to go hunt deer. And let me show you the location. They were going to a place called Morgan Canyon. Morgan Canyon was right here. Wendover's right here. They were hunting this area. So it was about a 10-mile drive into this total region where they were hunting. They had a cabin here that they were staying at. Now the green areas of the map indicate areas that have a lot of trees, thick bush, etc. But the kind of tan-colored, white-colored area, that's a region that is a desert. Not much out there. Very little out there. Well, he and his brother-in-law went out to hunt, and they agreed to meet back at the cabin at a specific time. And they were out about 2 miles, and that's when they decided to split up. Well, as nighttime came, brother didn't show up. Lyman J.A. was gone. And his brother-in-law drove back into town, got the sheriff, and they brought out search and rescue people. Well, what happened is that as the search and rescue was happening, wind and rain hampered the search, which is very, very weird for this part of the country. Very weird. They don't get much precipitation on this desert environment. Well, they searched for 5 days. They had 100 men there at one time. And they believe they covered every inch of ground possible that J.A. could be in. So, a man named L.H. Hubbard led the search. And he believed that every ground possible was covered, and it was a huge mystery where J.A. would go. Well, on November 16th, 1936, about a month after J.A. disappeared, and 3 weeks after the search had ended, J.A.'s wife, her mom, and another man that was their friend decided to go into the area where he disappeared. And they started climbing a mountain that they thought was the best bet of the place he'd be. And as they're going up the mountain, they both stop, all 3 of them stop, and look to their left. There's a body. It's J.A. Now, the November 16th, 1936 edition of the Reno Gazette stated, "The body was well preserved and was found lying within a few feet of where 100 men had searched." That was the quote. Lying within a few feet of where 100 men had searched. How many times have I said similar things? Do I believe that the searchers missed him? No. Do I believe that something happened and he arrived at that point? Yes. Now we'll go on. The coroner determined the cause of death was exposure. Weirdly, J.A. was found on his 52nd birthday. Kind of strange. So he was in a subgroup of the missing. He was a hunter. You have point of separation. You have weather-related incidents. And he's found in an area that was previously searched. And he died of exposure. Come on. That area of Nevada has historically had a lot of weird things happen out there. And even though the population density of Nevada between Reno and their border to the east, that density is very low. The number of people that have disappeared under weird circumstances is high. So, and if you think back to the other searches I've talked to you about, where professional search teams, organized, can't find the hunter, and then all of a sudden the relatives go out, or friends go out, and they find him. I don't know. Is there some sort of compassion on the part of whoever took them that they bring them back? I'm just speaking outside the box. I don't know. But the body being well preserved, could that mean something? Could that mean maybe it hasn't been sitting outside for a long period of time? No. Story troubled me. That's why I brought it up. So, the next story has to do with a case out of Arkansas. Opening deer, another hunter story. An opening day of deer season. Bill Bounds, 79 years old, went missing November 5th, 1951. He lived in a small town called Vulcan, Missouri. He was a retired farmer. He had 6 kids. He was staying at a cabin with his son-in-law in a place called Low Hollow near Ellington. And what the pair were doing is they were going from tree stand to tree stand during the day trying to find a location where they could line up a deer. Well, they were driving in an area. I'll show you. So, he was from Vulcan. This is the Black River here. So, they were hunting in an area along and between his residence and the river. And they were driving along, and Bill told the son-in-law, hey, pull over. I want to check this hollow out. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Do you mind if I use your gun? So Bill didn't have a hunting license and didn't even bring a rifle, borrowed his son's, and he went out into this hollow. Now, one thing, there's a code amongst deer hunters. When you say you're going to be back in a few minutes, you're always back in a few minutes because somebody's waiting. Well, the son-in-law waited and waited and waited and waited. Darkness took over, and he went to get help. Now, Bill knew this area very, very well. That dark green area is a super thick region of marshy, swampy area. Well, he knew this area like the back of his hand. He'd hunted it for years. When he stepped out of the truck, it started snowing. It snowed 4 feet in 2 days. The second day, a neighbor that lived in this area of the hunt had his dog come home covered in blood. Dog never ran off. Nothing like that had ever happened. And the sheriff was there because they were searching that area. Took some blood samples, and weeks later, the blood samples came back as human blood. They thought, that's really weird. And they tried to get the dog to search at that time, go back and find what happened. The dog wouldn't move. So there were hundreds of searchers that went into that area. And they searched 5 days. They didn't find anything. And then the family searched out 15 miles over a series of weekends after that. Didn't find anything. Now, fast forward 6 months. This incident happened on November 5th, 51. On May 25th, 1952, some people were walking along that same river and they found a body on a sandbar in the Black River. Called the sheriff. What they found there were bones only inside of clothing. There was a purse, a small purse, like a mail purse, inside of a pocket. The head was 50 feet away on the same sandbar. Well, in the purse, they found the ID of Bill Bounce. And they found some money, some other things. They never found the rifle. I find the whole scenario of the sandbar particularly interesting. Let's say it's high water and somehow or another it pushed the body onto the sandbar. Possible. The likelihood that a head was 50 feet away and the body was still on the sandbar with the head is very unusual. Heads float differently than bodies. And to end up both in that same location, the odds are almost unthinkable. They never could figure out the cause of death of Bill. But when you think of what happened, you have water, you have a subgroup of hunters, you have point of separation, you have a weather event, and weirdly, you do have a dog involved. Why would that dog come back with blood all over its body? They said that the clothing on Bill wasn't torn up, wasn't disturbed. So the dog didn't attack Bill. So what happened here? The distance from where Bill was found to where he was last seen was about 3 miles. Not unusual. Strange story. The dog being involved was ultra strange. Next story, Alaska. Not a hunter story though. Gentleman's name was Bill Lockner, 46 years old, missing July 21st, 1957, in an area called Neets, N-E-E-T-S Bay, Alaska. He was a family man, lived in Eatonville, Washington. He had a wife and 4 kids. Came to Alaska because he was a logger, and Washington was cutting back on its logging, and Alaska was paying good money to these remote spots. And this place was remote, lonely. You had a camp and you had a group of loggers. But Bill liked that lifestyle because he was an outdoorsman and he loved his work. He was described by members of the logging team as an outstanding outdoorsman and even a better logger. Well, they gave the guys a day off on July 21st, 1957, and Ben borrowed a rifle from his boss, and he said he was going to take a hike. He also brought a bag lunch. He took off. It wasn't uncommon for people to hike the woods in this area. It's beautiful. So he didn't return. And the logging crew and his boss pulled out every stop imaginable. At an incomprehensible price for 1957, they hired a helicopter to fly around and look for him. Ketchikan, which was the closest major city, had a search and rescue team respond. Now, there's water all over this area, and the logging base camp was right here in Neets Bay. Give you some location here. Here's Duke Island, Dundas Island, Somerville Island, and this is going west, going east. Very remote area. They were logging on an island in Neets Bay. Got it? Well, right away, reports started to come in that the search party's efforts were being hindered by rain and wind and light snow. Well, there were 125 men that they got into this location via boats and planes and roads to help. They described Ben as in perfect condition, outstanding, athletic almost condition. Well, the Ketchikan rescue team searched for 5 days, and they did find tracks, and they did track Ben to a location near an old logging road where they said he sat down and ate his lunch. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty good tracking too. And they said it was about 3 miles from camp. They said he sat there for a particular period of time, ate the lunch, and then they couldn't find tracks leaving the area. Well, that caused his wife and his family to be hugely depressed. And loggers knew that Ben was a good man. So for weekends afterwards, they continued to go out searching. Never found anything. Never found his rifle. Ben was never found. Now, if you think about this, what you have is you have rain and wind that hampered the search. He's carrying a rifle. So if you saw him going through the woods, it may be perceived that he was hunting. There's water all around him. He took his lunch, he sat down, and then all of a sudden they can't find tracks. That's odd. Very odd. And he had a rifle and he knew how to use it. So what happened to Ben Lockner? What happened to J.A. Lyman? How did he all of a sudden arrive at a location in Nevada when other searchers had walked right by that location? How did Bill Bounds and his body all of a sudden show up in the middle of a sandbar so close in proximity to each other? Again, I bring you these stories as an education. If Bill Lockner or Bill Bounds had had a personal locator beacon, who's to say they might not have been found? None of these people were with somebody else when this happened. And folks, not one of these men ever thought something bad was going to happen to them. And there are so many hunters that are so macho that think, oh, this is just garbage, it's never going to happen to me. It can happen to you. Angie and I have been on many hikes this last summer. And stunningly, the number of women we see hiking alone is more than men. It scares the heck out of us. Because a lot of times they're going to go off trail if they're going to use the bathroom, say. Do each of them have a personal locator beacon? Doubtful. So, your grandma, grandpa, friend, relative, for birthday, holiday gift, get a personal locator beacon for your relatives if they go off trail, even on trail. Get them one. Go to Amazon, do a search, read the reviews, personal locator beacons, then go to the site and buy it. A reminder that our movies are still available for free to watch on Amazon. You have to pay a couple bucks, but on YouTube and I believe on Hulu, they're free. So please watch them. Tell your relatives to watch them. They're a good introduction to the topic. And coming up with holidays, put it on your calendar. Watch Missing 411 or watch Missing 411 The Hunted. And they're a movie for the family. They're not real heavy, but they're interesting. So if you get a chance, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I've had 100 people in the last week say they just found out they were unsubscribed. What's going on? I can't explain it. So our website for missing people is CanAm, like Canadian American, canammissingproject.com. The website for our books is NA, like North America, bigfootsearch.com. Go to the store. And I realize that I am blessed. And I'm blessed because of you. Really. And the letters I read today, one specifically from the person that said I saved their life. Thank you. And again, if you've had strange things happen to you in the woods, please write to me. I want to hear about it. And if I find it applicable to what we're doing here, I'll definitely read it. Please don't make things up. I've gotten a lot of things that were made up that I haven't read to you that are just way over the realm of reality. And most things, it doesn't matter if it's outside the realm of reality. I'd read it, but there's other things that pointed to it not being true. So I'm saving you that. So again, one last thing I want to say as a safety note. If you live in an area where we have extreme temperatures like Montana, North, South Dakota, Minnesota, all these states where it can get really cold real quick, in your car, make sure that you keep like a safety box, a blanket, heavy coat, a wool hat, gloves, bottled water, a couple energy bars, and keep that in the car with you. There's been several instances I've read about just lately where people died when their car went off the road. They were trapped inside, couldn't get out or whatever, and they didn't have a cell phone or there wasn't cell coverage, and they died because they froze to death. So keep those things with you and keep that idea in your mind. So if something happens, you can save yourself. And you might pass along that message to somebody else that's a loved one. So anyhow, thank you, Village, for everything you do and your comments on the videos. You can email me at canammissing, Canadian American, like canam, C-A-N-A-M, missing, at yahoo.com. Have a great week. Paulides out.